Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is PJ, and on this channel, I help you connect with your true self. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm sure is going to get brought up for all of us at some point in our lives. And for me in particular, it was brought up strongly this past 4 days because I live in Oklahoma, and if you've been following the news, you've probably heard about the snowstorm in Texas, Oklahoma, and I'm sure many other parts of the country. And places like Oklahoma are not really built to endure cold. They're not really used to this type of weather. So because of that, the houses are not structured in a way where during cold season they're prepared to handle it. And our water pipes were frozen for 4 days. And I personally really love my showers, and I love having access to water. And not having access to water for 4 days before we were able to get those pipes thawed out, it really challenged me in so many ways. But I feel like all of those challenges were helping me teach and remember a certain lesson that I think is super important for all of us to remember and implement in our lives. And that lesson is, when we have a strong desire for something, for me personally, it was a strong desire for water to come back on. When we have a strong desire, which oftentimes we're told, especially in success communities and success books, that have a burning desire, have a burning passion, all that stuff. Oftentimes when we have a desire like that, it actually blocks us receiving the thing that is desired, because the vibration that we put out, the energy that we put out, is this energy of like neediness. And just like I always like imagine Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It's always like, my precious, and that energy is very repulsive, for most people. And I think most of us will go through a time where we desire something strongly. Right now, you might desire a certain outcome very strongly. And I'm here to say and talk about how our attachments to that outcome, our intense desire for that outcome, can actually become an obstacle in the way of us receiving that which is desired. And I used to not really understand this and not be able to really make it a part of my life. And these past 4 days, I was able to really understand that, because the burning desire that I had for running water was so high, that it was really difficult to let go of the attachment that I had to wanting the plumber to come out, wanting it to be fixed, constantly having this like, okay, please today, please be fixed, just having that cycle repeat. I was able to use that situation in order to learn this lesson, because this is a lesson that I started really wanting to implement into my life after reading one particular chapter in this book called Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David R. Hawkins. I've made an entire video on this technique, which I'll put up here. This is called the letting go technique. It's taught by Dr. David R. Hawkins. I'm not going to get into it since I've already talked about it in a different video. I'm going to talk about, in particular, one chapter in this book that for me was just very eye-opening. And I think certain books have, obviously they have so many different chapters, but the books that are very potent, oftentimes in different phases of your life, in different phases of your journey, you might really resonate with a different chapter that you didn't really hear as strongly before. And so the chapter about desire, and I'll put a map of the levels of consciousness up here, which I talk about this map also in a lot of my videos, because it's kind of like the foundation, or the basic premise that I try to go off in my own day-to-day life in a lot of ways. I try to gauge myself, okay, like, where am I on this map? It's a really helpful tool once you really start getting the hang of it. And if you want to learn more about it, please read the books Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness by Dr. David R. Hawkins, and Map of the Levels of Consciousness Explained, also by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So Those books obviously go very, very, very in depth explaining this map. But in the Letting Go book by Dr. David R. Hawkins, the chapter on desire, there's a section in that chapter called Desire as an Obstacle. And this chapter was really helpful in portraying a certain intuitive understanding that I had come to kind of on my own, but it helped put words to it and it helped clarify that idea and that concept, how that sometimes when we really, really, really want something, that actual strong desire for that thing can become an obstacle in the way of us achieving that, because it becomes like a repulsive energy. The vibration of it is repulsive. Like when someone's really needy and they really, really want something, if you've ever been in a position where somebody really like in a needy way wanted you, you can know how that's very repulsive. Or like salespeople that like reach out to you like 20 times. And like you're obviously not interested. It's very repulsive, that energy. And so in that chapter, Desire as an Obstacle, Dr. Hawkins explained how this strong desire for something can actually become an obstacle, and here's why. When we desire something very strongly, we're basically telling ourselves, our subconscious, or the universe, that we don't have the thing that is desired. And I'm going to kind of put this concept and this chapter into my own words and explain it maybe a little bit differently than Dr. David R. Hawkins has in that book. So I highly recommend you go and read that chapter specifically if you want to learn, from exactly what he said. But basically, the bullet points of what he says in that chapter is that when we desire something, we are saying that I don't have that thing. And also there's a fear that comes into the mix, which also pushes that thing away. And that fear is the fear of not achieving or having or gaining that desired outcome, that desired situation. So, in the water example, for example, in my case, my just burning desire for water to come back on creates with it a fear of, oh my God, what if it doesn't come back on? Oh my God, what if it doesn't come back on for a week? All those fears come into the mix because of that burning desire. So all of those combined truly turn desire into an immense obstacle in the pathway of manifestation. So it actually delays and possibly stops the manifestation completely, because we're pushing that thing that we want away versus being a receptive, open energy for it to come to us. So this actually is really understandable when you put it in the concept of like dating. A person who really wants another person and they're really like texting them all the time, this is like before they actually get into a relationship, or like actually for one of them to hear from the other person that the other person is really actually interested in forming a relationship with them. Imagine if the person that's really pursuing the other person is constantly texting them and they're not even getting a response back, but they're still sending, text, hey, how are you? Like, how are you feeling? Da da da. And they're texting him every 20 minutes and every hour and not getting a response back. The moment that other person checks their phone and sees all those messages or sees all those missed calls, and it's like, that starts feeling creepy almost. Like you want to just like stay as far away as possible from that person, because that needy energy of like, I really want you, that energy is so repulsive. And like I said, Gollum in Lord of the Rings is just such a good image of that repulsive energy. It's like, my precious, and it just makes you want to stay away from anyone that sees you like that, So I feel like I had become like Gollum in the case of water, where I was just like, my precious water, please come back, please, 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 please. And you just see how that just puts you in such a disempowered state when you're just so needy in a situation. And so the desire for that, the way it becomes the obstacle, is that like what kind of outcome would really want to come into your life when you are that needy? You know what I mean? It's just like so easy to understand when you think in terms of like a relationship. Like what kind of person would want to actually come date you if you're that needy? If somebody does come to you and does start dating you after you've been that needy, you also have to like start thinking about, what kind of person wants that? Do you really want to be with someone who responds to that needy energy? Because they might be someone that likes to take, your energy. So there's just like a lot of dynamics that play into the desire being an obstacle. So like, what do we do? What's the solution? Well, Dr. David R. Hawkins in that book says, and I'm going to combine what he says with kind of my own learnings and experience, but basically what he says is that the way we achieve something is we put out the intention, we put out the asking. So, of course, we have to, and this is something actually I didn't do as a type 9 on the Enneagram, I didn't ask for my needs. I didn't actually put requests out to the universe often. I partially because I didn't really know what I want for a portion of time, but also because I felt bad about asking. I felt bad about asking just in my own life, which then played a part in me feeling bad about asking the universe, asking God for anything. And I think there's a line in the Bible where Jesus says, like, whatever you shall ask of your Father, He will give it to you. Because it's like you have to start thinking about God. You have to start thinking about the universe as like a good Father that wants to meet your needs, that wants to give you what you want. And sometimes it might not give you what you want, but that's actually what's best for you. So that's like a higher way of perceiving that. It's like, how often have you had a situation where you really wanted a certain outcome, a certain person, a certain job, and you didn't get it? But then because you were not tied up in that situation, another person, another job presented itself that is so much better for you than the one that you desired. So being able to like be in that surrendered state and trusting the will of God that the best thing will happen, the best outcome will always happen, that's very important. But the asking for what you perceive that you want is very important also, and that's something I personally lack. So Dr. David R. Hawkins says, asking and setting your intention is like the first step. So you can write it down, you can really imagine it. For me, writing down is very helpful. Just writing down, what I want. So, and also writing down like how that would feel and really actually feeling it too. Like if like I was imagining the water coming back on, like the feeling of turning the faucet on and water coming out, being able to take a shower, like all those things were just like, I would just imagine them and I would just feel so happy. And it's amazing just how happy you can feel when the idea of running water comes into your head and you haven't had water in 4 days. I hope you never go through it, but if you do go through it, it will boost your gratitude for running water and living in a society that you have access to running water. It just boosts your gratitude for that so much. But I would imagine and I would ask for that desire of running water to come back on. And I would feel how awesome I would feel if I had that. And Dr. Hawkins says, ask, set that intention, maybe write it down, and feel the elated, the joyful feelings that you would feel, with your asking being fulfilled. Imagine all that, and then let it go. Write it down, set that intention, and then let it go. And it's so counterintuitive, especially if you've learned like just you gotta desire it and you gotta go after it and you're gonna want it. You have to have a burning desire and you have to like grind and chase after it. And that's all true on a certain paradigm, right? So like, let me go back to this chart real quick because there's two different paradigms of being really. It's like before 200, that's its own paradigm. And you can call that the paradigm of scarcity, where there are limited resources, at least in your perception, and you have to go get what yours. And you have to grind and you have to work your butt off and you have to just like struggle, basically. It's like a paradigm of struggle underneath 200. And if you've ever been in those vibrations, which we all have been, I'm sure, we we know what that feels like, to feel like it's always a fight, it's always a grind, it's always like me against the world, it's like, it's basically separation, me against other people. Over 200, you start moving into more collaboration, more there's enough for everyone, more thinking win-win, more thinking like my needs are provided for. The universe it's not scarce anymore with, as it seemed in below 200, but it starts becoming a place of abundance. You start noticing abundance. You start feeling like you are abundant, and that vibrational shift truly, especially, going from underneath 200 to over 200, it literally completely shifts how you view reality entirely. And I'm sure we've all experienced that, where we've been in a position where we've been like, let's say for me, I went through a season where I was like really stuck in fear and in pride. Those were like really bringing me down, but it was more like pride, I would say. And I remember like how it felt, where I was just like, I always felt like I have to like just struggle for everything, and like, all that stuff. And when I made that jump, and I've talked in my book recommendations for type 9 Enneagram video, which I'll put up there, I've talked about how that transition kind of happened for me and what book really led to that transition. But nonetheless, when I made that transition, I just remember the feeling of like, the struggle is over. And it's not like you're not going to work hard. It's not like you're not going to go after what you've asked for, but there's a different energy. So that is basically what Dr. David R. Hawkins says. Write it down, have the intention clear, and then let it go. Surrender it to a higher power, to a bigger context, as he would say. And basically, what he means by that bigger context is like below 200, you start seeing the universe and God as like this stingy parent that does not want to give you what you want, and it might even like want to keep you from what you want. But over 200, you start seeing that God, the universe, literally wants to give you what you desire and what you want. And you start trusting that. So you're actually more able to release that desire that was the block, that was creating that repulsive energy. You're able to surrender that to a higher power, to God, and trust that it will work out. And so there are a few keys involved in that, which I'll talk about now. And these are more from my own experience. So it's a little bit easier to always talk about my own experience versus like, this person said this in this book, and then now I'm just trying to regurgitate. Like, that's why I always want to encourage you guys to go read the books too, because I always want to put my own twist on it, because at the end of the day, I understand it in my own way. And that's why, that's what I want to share on the channel mainly. So the way I work with this, and the way I learn how to work with it, is, for me, I try to get very clear about my intention. So I set that intention. I have found journaling and writing it down to just be miraculous. But in the case of water, I wasn't like writing it down, please God, like give me water. I wasn't writing it down. I was just imagining it, imagining the water coming back on. And I would imagine that. But the key that I've found is you have to come from a place of wholeness right now. You have to feel, there's a really, really good book actually that is coming to my mind that I recommend you guys check out. It talks about this in depth. It's called The Illusion of Money. It's by Kyle Cease. I'll put a picture of it up here and a link to it in description. But basically, you have to feel, and meditation really helps you with this too, you have to start feeling that place of wholeness within yourself, which it's glimpsing a different paradigm. Because when you only see yourself as a separated being, you always feel like you're in scarcity. Like, it's me, and there's other people, and there's limited resources, which, under 200, you're going to feel that way. You're going to be in a scarcity paradigm, and just feel like you are not whole within yourself. But when you start going over 200, and when you start really meditating and being able to tap into that place of like, I am whole, I am healed, I am complete in this very moment. So, from this place of wholeness, from this place of I'm good with or without that outcome, like really being okay with I'm good. I'm good in this moment. I'm complete. I'm whole. Um, I'm good in my being. Like that place, it takes practice to get to because we're so trained to be in a lack mentality and be in a place of like, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I need to go get my, like we're so taught to be in that state, mainly because most people only know being in that state, but like we're truly stepping into a new paradigm and a new way of being. So being able to be and feel not just like, oh, I'm whole, mentally. No, like feel it in your body that you are whole, healed, and complete in this very moment. Meditation, like I said, helps a lot with that, and I've made a video on meditation. I'll put it up there. And the letting go technique also helps with that. I'll put that up there too. Once you start coming from that foundation of wholeness, now you're feeling your wholeness, and then you imagine your desired outcome. Okay, you imagine. For me, I imagine the water coming back on, and I sit with that imagination. I feel how it feels. Keep in mind, I approached it from a place of wholeness, and I'm gonna continue in my imagination how, of course, I would be so happy if that outcome was achieved. It's not like, oh, just be so numb. Like, if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it's not numbness. This is not numbness. This is wholeness. And it's different than just being numb, like, oh, whatever happened, happened. It's feeling your wholeness now, imagining the outcome, feeling how awesome you would feel, but also knowing and feeling in that imagination that you will be whole and complete and healed with that outcome, but also without it. So also imagining like how whole you would feel and how complete within yourself you would feel without that outcome. And that's the key. And that's something that took me so long to understand. So when Dr. Hawkins says let go, I think I hit this. So when Dr. Hawkins says let go of the desire, what he's saying is believe and trust that you are whole right now. And believe and trust that you will be whole also with or without that outcome. That's where that surrender comes from. Like you just know you will be whole. You will be complete. You trust that you are taken care of. And this takes practice, this takes meditation, this takes putting it into practice and then seeing it in your own experience. Because when we talk about these spiritual things, spiritual topics, it's an experiential realm. And if you don't put these things into your experience and into practice, you're not going to be able to just conceptually understand them. It's not about concept. It's not about just like, oh, I'm whole mentally. Like it's not an idea. It's about an experience of feeling that wholeness. So when you trust God, when you trust the universe, when you tap into your wholeness, when you try to remove all of the things that are blocking you, all the limiting beliefs that are blocking you from feeling your wholeness and your true essence in this moment, and which is everything I make on this channel is for helping you come back to your true self. And your true self is spirit, is full, it's whole, it's still as God created it. It's sinless, it's pure, it's innocent, it's loved, it's taken care of, it's peaceful, it's joyful. That's your true being, that's your true state. And this all sounds so out of reach when you haven't tapped into that essence, when you haven't felt it before. But just one time of really feeling yourself in that place, in that state, it transforms your entire life. You realize that you actually are bigger than the personal I, than the personal ego. And that's where wholeness comes from. It's not based in the ego, it's based in the spirit. Your wholeness comes from your spirit. So when you live from your spirit, you're able to desire that outcome that you really want, but then you're also able to surrender that desire because you know you're whole right now, because your nature is spirit. Spirit is not destroyed. It's only, created by God, and it stays as God created it. So you're whole now, you will be whole later. with or without that outcome. So that was the key, and that is the key. Letting go of the outcome, like, of course, wanting it and having that clarity of what you want, but also knowing that you will be okay with or without it. That's surrender right there. That's, oh, I'm okay if this comes, I'm okay if this doesn't come, because I trust that God, and this is the next important point and key, you have to trust that God, the universe, source, is always giving you what's for your highest good. God's will, so to speak, is done always. And God's will is the best for you. It's the best thing that you can have. So oftentimes you might not even know what that is. So you have to also take your trust to the next level and trust that you don't know. Like, you think you know what's best for you, but you have to have the humility to trust the bigger will, a higher will, God's will, that something better than what you may think you want may exist. And a different possibility, a different outcome may exist that's actually better for you. So this is really easy to understand when you think of a job. Let's say you apply to a job and you really think this job would be perfect for you. And that may be true, but there may be other elements that you don't know, that you can't possibly know, that only God knows. For example, 2 years from now, this company is gonna go bankrupt for some reason, and maybe the CEO was shady and was doing some stuff. So anyway, the company gets shut down. You now have bought a house, you've bought a car, you've done all these things, you've gotten yourself in these payments, and then that company goes under, and then now you're left without a financial foundation. So that outcome, even though in this moment with your limited perception thing seems like the perfect outcome, it's only from your limited perception that seems like that. And God, being able to see the whole thing, how the whole thing plays out, may actually say a better outcome for you would be this other job that you don't even know exists, because it's not yet in your experience. It hasn't yet come into your life. But in a month from now, you're going to hear from this company, and this company is going to be so much better. And so what's important is, yes, ask for that which you want, which, dear God, I want this job, and feel it, and really feel like how awesome you would feel, with the job that you want. Don't necessarily, also, I've learned, don't necessarily bog yourself down with so much, like let's say, for example, if you're imagining about a person that you want, for dating, don't think about a specific person. Think about more like how you want to feel within that relationship container. Think more about how you want to feel within that job. And that's what I found to be really the key, just really honing in, being very specific about the feeling and how you'll feel at that, and allowing the feeling to manifest in a form that would be best suited for it. So, in that job example, yes, you might really think you want that job that but really tap into the feeling, and then trust that at the end of the day, you want what God wants for you. You want the highest outcome. So this, if, for example, the map of the levels of consciousness, for example, imagine something like that, like a ladder. And imagine that what you think you want is actually at 180. But there's this other job, there's this other outcome that's way better for you, that's at 400, but you don't even know what it is. So trusting that a higher intelligence, that a higher will, that the will of God, source, universe, has something better in store that you might not know. So you have to trust that force. You have to have an experience of your wholeness that you have received from that source. So for me, this really comes down to feeling myself as God has created me, and feeling how, it's in the Bible it says, when the prodigal son comes back, and the prodigal son, if you read that story, it's the prodigal son feels like poor. You know, he's gone through all these experiences. He's basically like messed up his own life and threw his wealth away that his dad has in store for him, and thinks that he's lacking. And then he comes back to his house, to his father, comes back to God, comes back to source, comes back to his connection to the universe, and the father says, everything I have is yours. Or actually, I think he says that to the brother, but he's basically saying that to the prodigal son too. And that's true for us. Like, God has given us everything. Like, we're whole. Like, our true essence, our true being, our true divine nature is that we are whole, we are healed, we are complete. We are innocent, we are sinless, we are limitless, we are infinite as God has created us. And that is our true nature. So when you tap into that and you live from that and you've had that experience in your own life, then you can ask for whatever outcome you think you want and then surrender to God. Feel your wholeness now. Surrender to God. Trust God that, you know, of course, like for me, I literally talk to God. I say, of course, I want this thing that I perceived as the best thing for me, but I trust that what you want for me is the best thing for me. I trust your will. Have your will be done, and I know I will be whole with it and without it. And I swear, this has been like a new revelation for me because it was so hard to let go of my attachment to the desire for the water coming back on. But the moment I started really feeling how awesome would I feel, you know, I would feel if the water comes back on, but really also feeling my wholeness in this moment, but then also feeling how I would be whole and healed and complete without the water and with the water. And that God's will always will be done. Always will be done. And the highest good always will be done. The best outcome always is given me. Trusting that. And like, you can literally go back into your own life experience and think like, how many times did you receive something better than you actually knew you wanted? Like, the thing that you actually wanted, if you had received it, wouldn't have been the highest outcome for you because something else came into your life that was so much better that you didn't even know. And you have to look at the past in that way and see just that there has been a hand in your life that has supported you and given you everything that's like best for you. And then you can grow in trust and trust that again, that the same thing that did it then is going to do it again. And that sounds like a worship song, but it is true, especially when you put it into your experience. So like, I had to practice feeling my wholeness, feeling how awesome it would feel to have water, but also trusting that the highest good will be done, that there are elements at play that I may not know, and that, you know, with that outcome, which I'm not going to lie that I want, and without it, I will be fine. And the moment I was free, the moment I was free from the desire, the moment I was free from the attachment to the desire, it wasn't that I was free from knowing what my desire is. I was very clear about what my desire is, but I was free from the attachment. I had surrendered the attachment to its outcome, to its happening in physical form, to God. I had put it in God's hand. And literally, I think it was the same day or the next, we got our water back. And I actually, the plumber that actually ended up coming out was a really cool guy, had an amazing conversation, and I just felt like I made a new friend. And so like, everything worked out in the highest good, and God gave me a topic for this video. So like, if I got the water back the same day, would I have learned this lesson? No, because, you know, I want this, boom. You know, it's like, it took a process, but God works through processes. And you have to trust God's process, because God's process is creating the highest product that you can be, the highest expression of yourself that you can be, which is really more of an expression of your true self, which is my hope with every single video that I create. So another experience that I had the same yesterday was with Uber Eats. And me and my girlfriend both had this experience because we had placed an order, and obviously it's like been snowing like crazy out here. We had placed an order, and this the delivery of it, like the food was ready, and then Uber Eats would cancel like, oh, someone's gonna go pick up your food, and then it would get canceled. Then someone else, and then it kept pushing back. Like the delivery time kept pushing back and pushing back, and it was almost like closing time for that restaurant. So I was like, are we even gonna, be able to get that desired outcome, which is food from our favorite restaurant? And my my girlfriend was just like, me too though. I mean, we were like both like, oh, this is not gonna work, like giving up. But then I remembered what I've learned from the water situation, and I was like, okay, like how good would a learning be if I don't put it in practice? So I closed my eyes. I tried to feel my wholeness within this moment. In this very moment, I am whole, healed, and complete. I am provided for. I'm taken care of. Then I imagine my desired outcome, which is our food from our favorite restaurant arriving to our house. I imagined it. I imagined like getting the notification that this person has picked up your food's on its way. Just really feeling how awesome would that feel, and then also believing and trusting that with that outcome and that food, I will be okay. Of course, I will be okay. I will be whole and fulfilled. But also without it, I would be whole and fulfilled. And from that place, you can surrender and you can trust God's will that the highest outcome will be given you. And it's like God is a good father. And when you ask your father for something, God will give you the best thing for you. So for example, like, let's say you don't know that iPhone 12 has come out, and you only think that only there's been 11 iPhones. So you ask God for iPhone 11. But then God knows that iPhone 12 Pro Max also exists. So God, being a good father that wants to give you what would be the best thing to give you, what would be the best experience, gives you the iPhone 12 Pro Max that you didn't even know exists, but it would be the best, coolest iPhone out there. So God works like that. It's like, so having that trust that the thing that God is going to give you, the thing that the universe is going to give you is the best thing for you. That trust is so key. So literally, I had this meditation. I really felt it. The feeling is the key. Like, you can't BS your way through this whole thing. Like, you can't just be like, okay, I'm whole. Yes, outcome would be great. And then I'm whole without it. Like, no, it has to be felt. It has to be real in your body. And like, you have to realize, like, outcomes, like when you go into your imagination, you can feel a future physical outcome now. You can feel it in your body now. Like, I can feel, that food arriving now, and the experience that will feel like now. And that's the key. It's like you can make your experience be a whole experience. You can bring that future experience, that future feeling into your now and feel it now. And that's the key. Like that's why I said the feeling is the key. So feel it. And I swear, like literally, I opened my eyes, and my girlfriend was like so close to canceling that order. And I did not blame her, because she was waiting for that we were both waiting for that for like 2 hours. And it seemed like there's no hope. I did that meditation. Immediately after that, got a notification that somebody has just picked up our food, or like is on their way to pick up our food. And we got our food, and I have leftovers of it. I'm going to eat after this video, so I'm pretty excited about that. But it was just like 2 examples back to back of this process and the power of this process. So I have been trying to do this in different situations, but my desire for those situations were not as high as my desire was for this water coming back on and the food coming. And so I was really able to put this in practice and test it for myself and see if it's worth anything, because that's what I try to do with everything I learned. Because obviously, I share about a lot of different topics on this channel, but I only share about topics that I've put into my own practice and have seen them work. And this process of know what you want, but let go of your attachment and your desire, the burning desire for that outcome, and trust that the highest good will be done. But still, feel free to feel how awesome it would feel to have that outcome, but that you will be also complete and whole without it. And that is the key. I'm whole now, I will be whole with it, and I will be whole without it. And that is the position of power, that when you are operating from that state of wholeness, everything wants to come your way because you become a person of power, of true power, not like egoistic power, like true power. You become a magnet for all the best things in life. Everything is attracted to you. You have a magnetic energy, not a repulsive energy. You're not pushing things away. You're drawing things in. Everyone wants to be like in your circle. It's like things are gravitating towards you. Things that you don't even know are gravitating towards you because your vibration is of a vibration of a person who is magnetic and draws the best things into their own life. And that is possible for all of us. And I'm sure all prophets, like when you read the teachings of Jesus about, whatever you ask, believe that you have received it, have faith that God, will, like, for example, like there's a story in the Bible that's like if you're a child and you ask your dad for food, he's not going to put like a snake on your plate and like hurt you. It's like, no, he's going to give you food, and he's going to give you the best food because he's a good father. And when you really start thinking about God in that way, or the universe in that way, it's like a good parent that wants to give you the desires of your heart and the best things for you, then the world unlocks. And really trusting and believing that you are whole now, feeling that in your experience, and feeling that you will be whole no matter what. And another great book that I think, probably the most insane and intense experience that anyone can go through, which would be Auschwitz, Germany. This man, Viktor Frankl, in this book, Man's Search for Meaning, literally was able to tap into this state and in Auschwitz, Germany, still find a hope to survive. And he talks about that experience in that book. And one last thing I want to say, because I hear this being thrown around a lot, and I just haven't found it to be true in my experience. The timing of things is up to God. You have to trust that. So like, if I keep saying, okay, I'm imagining by tonight the water is going to come back on. It's like day one of us being without water. Like, if I am so just attached to that time, I am going to have a horrible time. I'm going to have a miserable experience if it doesn't come. And that's what Viktor Frankl says in his book. It's like the people who were like, oh, we're going to be free by Christmas. And then Christmas would come and they're still not free. And then they're like, okay, we're going to be free by Easter. And Easter comes and goes and they're still not free. Like, or whatever, it's, those people died first because they kept being attached to an outcome, a time frame, and then they would lose hope and they would fall into despair and apathy. In this chart you can see it's like apathy, which is the state most people would feel in that circumstance, and most people did feel. Those people died first because that you once you lose hope and you lose a sense of meaning, that's that was the quickest tell for Viktor Frankl to be able to tell, like, those are the people that are gonna die first because they didn't have anything to live for anymore. And so I think not being attached to a certain time is super important. And I think if there's anything 2020 taught us is like, there's a saying, it's like, man plans, God laughs. And it's like, it's great to have your plans and your timelines and timetables, but be free of your attachment to those things. Another thing is, it's not for us to say how it will happen. That's why I said, focus on the feeling. Like, focus how awesome it will feel. Like, I focused on the water coming back on, but I didn't focus on how the water will come back on. Like, who is the plumber? What company are they, working for? What time are they going to come? Like, what are they going to look like? Like, I didn't think about all that. I didn't think about all the how, like, what tools are they going to use? I didn't think about all that. I just thought about the outcome, general, and like feeling it. Most importantly, feeling how awesome it would feel to have water. And that seems to work for me. Now, you may have a different experience. Some people are really, I don't know, like, I think some people really talk about being specific. I agree with that. I mean, when I write down my desires, like, I'm very specific, but I'm very specific about what I want it to feel like. Like, if I'm writing down my dream job, I'm writing down like how it will feel, like what I would feel like, the experience of it. Like, I really am specific about that stuff, and that seems to work for me. But I'm not specific about the how. Like, the how is not up to any man to figure out. It's like the how is up to God, and we just have to trust that we will be led to take the right actions, and God will speak to us. That's why meditation is so key. Being still is so key, because that still small voice will guide you to the right actions to take to manifest your desired outcome, and you can take those and let go of your attachment for that, and sooner or later, because it's just a matter of time, sooner or later that thing will appear in your life. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I think I talked super fast because this has been a mind-blowing experience for me. It just truly seemed miraculous in so many ways, and I felt like I finally figured out what the meaning of desire as an obstacle was, as Dr. Hawkins had said in that chapter. And so it was a very exciting video for me to make, because I had just learned it, and I love sharing what I've just learned. I had an idea of another video topic I was gonna make tonight, but I was just like, no, I just can't do that. I'm excited about this. I gotta make this, and so I let go of my attachment to that idea. I'm gonna shoot that video. No, I'm gonna shoot what feels the most resonant in this moment, and that just has been working great for me. Letting go of these attachments to outcomes, and I think if 2020 challenged us to let go of our attachment to how we think things should go, I think 2021 may challenge us again, or even more. And so I think 2020 was preparing us for learning how to navigate with this flow, and kind of learn how to just not be so attached. Have plans, have what you want to do, have your desires, but not be attached to them, and know you will be whole with them and will be whole without them, because your wholeness is given by God and it extends beyond time. So it really doesn't even matter what happens during time, because you're whole for eternity. So I truly hope that this video resonated for you. I hope that it was helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, please like it. That's how I can learn what topics are really being helpful for you, so I can make more videos on those. And if you enjoyed what I talked about also and want to see more videos like this, please subscribe so that my videos have a higher chance of appearing in your timeline. And yeah, please join my email list. That's my last request. If you liked what I talked about in this video, I'm making a course. I'm working on a course right now where I'm bringing all these different topics that I've learned and putting them in an organized format, and trying to go weekly, in these different modules within a course format. So I'm working on that right now. If you want to hear first about it, please subscribe to my email list. That's where I will be releasing information on that. Again, thank you guys so much for watching my video. My name is PJ, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.